If I could go back in time and talk to my 15-year-old self, what would I tell it? So this video is going to be a two-part video. The first part is going to be about languages and what I wish I could have advised my younger self before I got into learning all these different languages, and stuff I could have told my younger self that would have made things a lot easier. And the second part is lifestyle. This is just general things, general advice that I could tell my young self that would have helped him develop as a man and just as a person. Let's get into it. So if you're not necessarily interested in the language information, but you just want to hear what life lessons I would give my 15-year-old self, then skip to this time in the video. But without further ado, let me give you 3 little tips that I would have told my 15-year-old self when it comes to language learning. And the first is that using the right programs from the beginning is everything. Now, it took me probably, I'd say 3 to 4 years to find out what programs I actually vibe the best with and which programs are the most effective to me. And funnily enough, these programs are also programs that most successful language learners say that they also start off with. The first one is Pimsleur, the second one is Assimil. Those 2 programs really, I found, set the best foundation for learning languages, and I didn't really fully grasp that, how to do it, in which order and which programs would be the best, until I was probably around 19 years old. And had I figured that out from the beginning, it would have saved a lot of time, because that kind of goes straight into tip number 2. And tip number 2 is stick to a method and don't hop around. One of the biggest mistakes that I made personally when it comes to language learning is that because in the beginning stages I didn't have programs that I really liked. I tried Rosetta Stone, I tried these different podcast things, and there was nothing really structured that I was using. I would try something for like 2 weeks, and then I'd be like, I'm not sure about this, and then I would switch to something else, and I would do that for 3 months, and then it wouldn't be getting me the results that I want, and then I would stop and I would quit. And then I would start a different method, and then I would stop and I would start a different method. You will never learn a language if you're always bouncing between different things. And one of the greatest things about structured programs like the ones I talked about is that they offer a way to track your progress. They give you a general idea of where you're at. For example, Pimsleur is more for beginners, and I'll leave a link to both of them down below too. But Pimsleur is more for beginners. It's like the first thing you should touch when you want to start learning a language. Whereas Assimil is something that is like, okay, you finished Pimsleur, you got a good introduction to the language. Now you start with Assimil, which is kind of like intermediate / upper beginner. And then from there it takes you to an actual intermediate or upper intermediate level, and then from there you can do different things like talking to tutors and actually traveling to that country. But when I figured out, okay, these are my favorite ones, and after testing almost everything, that is when I really was able to stay with this, because I knew, okay, you know what, for Japanese I use Pimsleur, and for Dutch I use Assimil. I wonder what would happen, and then, you know, that's what happened with French, and French was by far and large the easiest language that I had to learn, just because of the fact that I knew the proper programs to use, and I knew something else that I'll talk about at the end of this video too, which is very, very important. So the third tip I would give my 15-year-old self is that self-belief and believing that you can actually learn a language is probably more important than anything else. Maybe even more so than the program, because if you don't believe that you can actually do it, then it all kind of falls through, because self-doubt will get in the way, and eventually you just be like, yeah, I'm not even sure if it's possible to learn this language. You'll start listening to what other people have to say, and it falls through. So I recently heard a cool analogy, and I'm not sure if you guys are really into video games, but if you play a lot of video games, you're very familiar with the concept of an experience bar. And one of the reasons why people are really it's really easy for people to get addicted to video games is because you know that when you put in the work, you can see your progress in this experience bar, you can see it, and then eventually you level up. And you know, you have 100% belief that if you put in the work, that you actually will get to a better level, a higher level. Versus languages, it's like, there's so much negative stigma about them. There's so much kind of false information about, oh, they're so hard, they're the hardest, they're impossible. You've got everyone in your mom, especially your mom, probably telling you, oh, I'm not sure if you can actually do that. The thing is, you have to believe that you can actually learn whatever language it is, Korean, Chinese, Russian, French. You have to believe you can do it, because if you don't have that belief, you don't carry that belief that, okay, if I put in a little work today and tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, that I can actually, you know, one day I'll be able to speak it, then it will really, you're never gonna get there. And funnily enough, today marks the last day of me actively studying Chinese. Today I had a full call with my Chinese teacher, and it was essentially an hour of speaking 95% Chinese. Sometimes we switch to English if I don't really know a word, but 95% of the call, of that 1 hour call, was spent speaking Chinese, and I did it. Meanwhile, when I started Mandarin Chinese, I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing, and it's really something you have to keep on picking at, and you have to keep on working at day in and day out. But just know that if you do, you can reach it. You can reach your goals. That said, what would I tell 15-year-old little rascal Ikenna about life? You know, if I could sit him down and have a man-to-man conversation, or boy-to-man conversation. Alright, so the first thing when it comes to lifestyle that I would tell him would be different people are good at different things, and that when you try to be someone you're not, it's never going to work out well. If you are a seal, you want to be the best damn seal there is in the ocean, right? You don't want to be a lion. You don't want to try to be a lion, because lions are going to be better at being lions than a seal is going to be at being a lion. You want to be the best seal possible, meaning, you know, a lion might be ferocious and can kill things and whatever, but you know, you push that lion in the water, in freezing cold water, and bye-bye, lion. But meanwhile, that's the seal's natural advantage. So essentially what I'm trying to say is people have different attributes and different advantages that make them who they are, and that as a 15-year-old it's very easy to be impressionable and be like, oh, I see these cool kids in school, these jocks, you know, and they're so good at football, and meanwhile I'm only good really with doing some graphic design and some computer stuff, and but they get everyone, they get all the girls, or they get all the boys, or the whatever, and it's very easy to be like trying to sacrifice what makes you unique and makes you an individual, and try to fit in and try to become what you're not. And the goal is to not try to be someone else, but to make people want to be you. You want to be the best whatever you are, because then people will try to be you. You don't want to go out there and try to be other people, because that's never going to be satisfying, and that's never how you're going to reach your highest potential. And obviously when you're young, it's hard to know like what you're good at. It's hard to know. You just know, okay, these people are popular and I'm not so popular. Something's wrong with me, But people are good at different things, and when you do eventually figure out what you're good at, you can pursue it. And this goes to my second tip, which is your parents and people that are older than you, that grew up in different generations, they don't really know what's going on oftentimes with social media, and the fact that you can actually make a living out of what you're passionate about. Now, this is something that's crazy, and I never thought maybe 2 years back that I would actually be able to make a living out of what I'm passionate about, but here I am. I'm on YouTube, I'm making videos about learning languages and skits and funny stuff. I'm actually able to support myself with just this. And this is my passion. I don't have to work 9 to 5 for other people. And finding what makes you excited and what makes you want to get out of bed each and every single morning is, well, it takes some time. It definitely takes some time, but when you find it, know that through using social media, through all these opportunities that are around today, you don't always necessarily have to go the traditional route, whether that be college, whether that be working 9 to 5 for someone else and finally being able to enjoy your life when you retire at 65. No, you can actually take life by the horns and make whatever your passion is into your living. And that's something I wish I could have told my younger self, considering I dropped out of 2 universities before I was able to figure that out for myself. But moving on. So the last one, and I talked about this in my video called It's Never Too Late. I highly recommend you to check out that video. But this is more for anything you want to do. It doesn't have to be languages, but it can be any skill. It can be piano. It can be playing basketball, getting good at any skill. And I tell my brother this all the time because he's 16 years old now, but ever since I was 13, I've been telling him, listen, when you're young, when you're in high school, compared to when you're in university, compared to when you're working in the real world, you have a lot of free time. Whatever you want to learn right now, I guarantee you in 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years, you are going to thank yourself so much that you actually started now. I think one of the things that I was very lucky that I realized when I was younger is that I had the realization that I'm going to wake up in the future, and that one day, instead of being 15, I'm going to be 20 years old or 25, and that day is going to come sooner than I imagine it. And I don't want to wake up empty-handed and thinking back to when I was 15 and thinking, oh man, I wish I started to learn a language there, or oh, I wish I started to get into music there, or just have regrets. Regrets are the worst things. And I realized that, and that's actually why I started to get into languages initially, because I figured, hell no, I'm not going to wake up in 5 years empty-handed wishing I started earlier. You have the time to put in right now into anything you want to learn, and eventually you're going to be pretty damn good at it. So, you know, go for it. Whatever it is, even if it's just experimenting until you find what it is really that you're passionate about, try a lot of different things. And don't be afraid of what your parents or what your friends might say. Just go for it. Experiment, 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 and when you find what it is, whatever it is that you love to do, go for it full force. And don't be afraid if your parents don't understand that, hey, I'm in love with this and I want to really make it my life. Just go and make it your life. Anyways guys, that's been the video. I hope you like it. A little bit different, a little bit, maybe a bit motivational, but also I noticed that there are a lot of younger people sometimes that are on my channel, and I wanted to create something for you guys too. So hopefully the video was helpful, and take care. Peace out. 再见.